Video games have taken on many varying ideas throughout their history. With the ability to pretty much do anything with this form of media, it was only going to be so long before the idea of playing God would come into it. And sure enough, it did with games like Populous, Black and White, and you can even add The Sims in too, despite it not being classified as a God game as such. The problem that has always occurred with games where you play God is that they have never really changed from a gameplay standpoint. But the game we're looking at today allows you to play God, but with a very different gameplay experience. And that game is the Sandbox of God. The Sandbox of God is a puzzle game developed and published by Vertigo Gaming Inc. It initially released on January 15th, 2010 and has since received a re-release with an inclusion in the Vertigo Gaming Inc. Legacy Edition bundle. The Sandbox of God offers a completely new take on what it is to play God in video games, but its short 10-minute playthroughs begin to lose their charm after 3 or 4 games. The Sandbox of God completely centres around gameplay. There is no actual plot. The objective of the game is to guide either humans, rabbits or both through a series of areas by using a variety of actions. The overall outcome at the end of a playthrough is determined by the order in which you conduct these actions in each area. At the beginning of a playthrough you start with a clean planet with nothing on it and a vast collection of actions you can make. Every action available to you must be used before you can progress to the next era, but the order you use these in is entirely up to you, with playing them in different orders giving varying results. As an example of how this works, at the beginning if you heat up the planet and make the ground hard followed by causing an earthquake, it makes a crack on the surface. This crack can then be filled with water by causing it to rain to make a river. If you were to cause an earthquake while the ground was normal, it won't make the crack and therefore can't make a river. So yes, the order at which you use your actions greatly affects how you shape the world. Having the actions work like this means you need to figure out what orders lead to what outcomes. It turns the gameplay of the game more towards puzzle than anything else, hence why I call it a puzzle game. It works really well and adds a level of replayability as you attempt to figure out the many different outcomes. Once you've used up all of your actions, depending on how well you do, there is a possibility that you will be given an opportunity. An opportunity is where something or someone on the world is calling to you for help, and it is entirely up to you as to whether you help or just ignore it. Think of it as deciding whether or not to make one last action before you leave the world to its own devices, until the next era where you will need to once again intervene. The opportunities are essentially a way of telling you if you've done well or not. If you have done well, it tells you whether or not the beings on the planet believe in you or not. And having the opportunities at the end of each era is essential when it comes to getting the best rank at the end of the playthrough. At the start of the next era, a new set of actions will become available, with some blocked off. The actions that are blocked off are based on the outcome of the previous era. The different outcomes change what actions are available and are not available to you in each era. Having the actions work like this is a really nice touch to the gameplay. It encourages players to keep playing and trying out new things. It makes you curious as to what these unavailable actions actually are, making you determined to try out the actions in different orders. Throughout the game, the various results of your actions give points. With the better the outcomes, the more points you gain. The more points you obtain, the higher your godly rank will be, which determines whether you are a great god or a terrible one. The scoring system and the god rank add an additional goal for the player as they attempt to get as high as possible in both during each playthrough and add a small level of replayability to the game. Finally, at the end of a playthrough you will be shown your achievements, both what you have accomplished in that playthrough along with any others from previous ones and which you still need to get. Achievements are categorized depending on their difficulty, from easy to hard. Obtaining all the achievements, which are all the possible outcomes, is the end goal of the Sandbox of God. Other than that, there really isn't any target for the player to achieve by continuing to play the game. Having these achievements results in giving the game an actual end that is more than just a game that takes 10 minutes, and there is nothing else to do. The problem is there isn't quite enough to keep the player coming back again and again, seeking out all of these achievements. It is pretty much the same thing over and over again, with there being little change each time, so the chances are those who do play it, the majority of them will never get all the outcomes. There just isn't enough variety to make it fun and worthwhile. In the remastered version of the game, there are 2 additional modes along with Classic, that being Board Game Mode and Warfare Mode. Board Game Mode is exactly the same as Classic Mode, just using different visuals. It makes it look exactly as the name suggests, a board game. It doesn't add anything to the gameplay, but it certainly gives you a visual refreshment. Warfare Mode, on the other hand, is completely different. Here you take control of a human colony, attempting to defeat the ongoing attack waves of rabbits while defending your colony, with each wave getting progressively more difficult. At the beginning of each wave, you select what powers you want to use. You can choose up to 10 of these powers at any one time, with man acting as your ground troops against a murderous bunnies in a tower defense fashion. You place the troops in line with the oncoming rabbits to kill them and on their buildings to destroy them, with the troops also taking damage from both. Each of the many powers costs a specific amount of points, which you gain more of for killing the rabbits and destroying their towers. Having the ability to use 10 of these powers at any one time results in you having to be tactical about what you need for the number and type of enemies that are going to be attacking. You need to decide how many troops you need and what powers you're going to bring, and choosing the right combination is key to success. The Warfare mode is a nice little addition to the game that gives you something else to play when the classic gameplay has worn out its welcome, and that is easily done after a few playthroughs. It is a distraction more than a feature that adds anything to the overall game. It feels like a last minute decision to implement in to add something extra to a game that doesn't offer a whole lot. Overall, the gameplay of the Sandbox of God is alright. It is certainly unique in the way that the gameplay is designed, where it is more like a puzzle game, is interesting. But its biggest downfall is definitely its repetition, where it is exactly the same thing over and over again. There just isn't enough to keep the player gripped where they'll want to find and unlock all the goals in the game. The Sandbox of God is one of those games where I keep thinking to myself, is that really it? I'm racking my brain in hopes of getting more to write about in relation to it, but there really isn't. Overall, the Sandbox of God isn't a bad game, but I am definitely on the fence with it. It is just one of those games that doesn't quite have enough content for it to be worthy of an asking price, even if it is only $3.29. It plays a lot like a flash game that you'd find on Newgrounds or Armour games for free. The twist in the design of the gameplay compared to that of other God games is certainly enjoyable and interesting, but like I previously said, there isn't anything to keep you playing other than to get the achievements. If there were unlockables of some kind or new content to discover as you play more, it definitely would make for a more enjoyable experience with longevity. And while the Warfare mode is a nice addition, it doesn't add anything to the game to help make it worthwhile. And with that, I give the Sandbox of God a 5 out of 10. It's one of those games that doesn't exhilarate nor make you feel hate towards it. It is simply a flat line. There are worse games out there that use a similar format, but there are others that are certainly a whole lot better. It's a game that is really only worth picking up and giving a go if you buy the entire Legacy bundle at its discount price, but on its own, it isn't quite worth its asking price.